You're listening to Comic Reflections, episode 293. I'm your host, Nicholas Prom.
And I'm that lovable, cranky jerk, Jeff Barnhart.
Comic Reflections is brought to you by The Outhousers. You can find our show and other nifty content at theouthousers.com. And if you enjoy this program, please subscribe to us on either iTunes or Stitcher. So before we get started on our comic book today, Jeff, I want to remind listeners about the contest that we are running presently. Leave us an iTunes review and drop us an email to let us know you have done so at comic.reflections@gmail.com. Be eligible to win a prize pack containing, but not limited to, also you must be lower 48 United States, okay? But to be eligible. But you will win the two Wolverine motion comic DVDs, Wolverine Origin and Wolverine vs. Sabretooth. Big stack of large comic book shop promo posters, mostly from Marvel Comics, and big mystery pack of comic books for your reading pleasure.
Wow.
Yes. All this can be yours.
Yeah.
Enter the contest. We'll announce the winner on episode 300, so that's about 7 episodes away.
Wow.
And it'll be great for one of you. So,
Okay.
Is he the one? The quiz outsider.
Yes, we've been talking about Dune and how much I love the book, and I hated the movie when it first came out, but now I love the movie in all its glorious badness.
And I don't even think it's bad. It's just crazy.
Lots of overacting and all that stuff, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's great.
And don't stop me from having fun.
No, it is. So,
Pre-show we were talking about Dune. But let's talk about something else. How about Giant Size X-Men #1?
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Genesis.
Yeah, you said you'd never read this comic.
I have not.
Wow. It's pretty famous, and it's been reprinted a lot. I mean, I probably read it the first time when I was 11.
Wow.
Reprint, of course, as is we're going from a reprint today. But Giant Size X-Men #1 went on, is cover dated May of 1975. But according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, it went on sale April 1st, 1975. You know, and so at this time, the X-Men book had been canceled for a few years and had just been for a big chunk of its run, had been a reprint book also. But Marvel decided to bring it back and do a fresh thing with it, and I'm glad they did. They did something really fun. The cover art, the figures in the foreground of the new X-Men, that's drawn by Gil Kane. And in the background, there's a drawing of the original X-Men, and that's by Dave Cockrum, penciled anyway. And then Cockrum inked all of the figures on the cover.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think that's kind of neat.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I wonder if it was like there were two pieces of art and they were put together as a composite.
I would love to be the fly on the wall sometimes when a comic book is being made.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, nice cover, and we turn the page and we get a different view of the cover because it's a different. Well, it's like the same concept
delivered differently.
The new X-Men coming forward and the old X-Men in the background.
Yeah, and the old X-Men are kind of like ghostly, floating head and shoulders, kind of, and there's like fire and smoke and stuff. The story in this issue is called Second Genesis. And it was written by Len Wein with an uncredited plot assist from Chris Claremont, who would then write the going forward from this. And then the art in the book is by Dave Cockrum. Now, and this is him fresh off of leaving DC and having worked on the Legion of Superheroes. And two of the X-Men introduced in this book, Colossus and Nightcrawler, were either going to be Legionnaires or members of this other group in the Legion comic called the Wanderers. But DC didn't own them, and they never got used in a comic. He had just had them as like concepts, and he brought them over to Marvel.
Yeah. Actually, those two are kind of my favorite of the new X-Men.
Yeah, I think me too. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
We begin.
We start in Winseldorf, Germany, which is an actual place. It sounds like it's made up, but yeah, there's a Winseldorf.
Oh, okay.
And it looks quiet and peaceful, but wait. The German folk are doing what German folk always do, and they're chasing after a monster with a bunch of pitchforks and torches. Yeah, where do they get the torches? I've never seen a torch in real life. Have you?
I think it's, like they break off a table leg and put a cloth around it.
Yeah, but that's a lot of work, and you're without a table leg.
Yeah, but there are other tables available.
Yeah,
Come on. A village of this size, there's plenty of carpenters.
Yeah. So, and they're chasing after Kurt Wagner or Wagner.
I think you may pronounce it however you choose. Because he is German, I would actually say Wagner, Kurt Wagner.
Yeah. Really? Wagner?
Look, I read this when I was 11.
Yeah.
And I've read it many times since. I read other X-Men comics with this character. Never once have I batted an eye at that name.
Okay. It's sort of like trying to think of a German name. Hitler, Wagner. Okay, it's sort of, it's the first thing that pops in your mind. So.
Well, it's a German name. What do you want to call him? Mitsubishi?
Yeah,
that wouldn't even make sense.
It's like calling someone in Europe making or someone saying, we need an American. Oh, just call him Lincoln or Washington. It's sort of too obvious. Does that make sense?
I get it, but I think
okay.
Some things you just gotta okay, that's the name, and just go on. It also has a good ring to it.
Yeah, it does at that.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing. If he had picked something that was more original but sounded kind of clunky, didn't have a good cadence to it, it'd be no good, and it would be just kind of like, an irritant.
Okay. Well, he's being it's Kurt Wagner, who's actually Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
Not yet, though. And this is pre-Nightcrawler days. And he jumps onto a building. He apparently surrounded by the mob, although you don't really know about that, because he doesn't run away. He jumps, he gets mad.
And he jumps and he crawls up the building.
He jumps up and crawls up the building. They set the building on fire. Then he gets mad and just jumps into the crowd and starts kicking butt.
Yeah.
But
they overpower him still.
Yeah, because they outnumber him greatly.
Yeah. And they're about to drive a stake through his heart.
Yeah.
That's pretty crummy.
Well, that makes sense. Look at him. I would think, I think the stake through the heart would be the rational thing to do.
Wow.
I mean, if I thought this guy was a monster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he looks like a monster and says, okay. I think they're not giving the guy a chance here, and they're wrong. Yeah. But if I saw someone like that and he was actually being kind of a monster and killing people...
He's not killed anybody.
I know, but...
Okay.
But I'm saying the stake through the heart is not totally out of bounds here. Okay. It is understandable.
Okay.
What's not understandable is they're going after him because he looks different. But
yeah, that's not nice at all.
Yeah. All right, so they're about to pound the stake in his heart, and then they stop in mid-motion, and they cause a Professor X comes by and stops everybody's motion with his mental powers.
Yeah, and then he talks to Kurt while everyone's frozen in Brainland.
Yeah,
and he convinces him to come to America to come to his school for gifted youngsters.
Yeah, and he doesn't need much persuading.
No, because he's got what's a nothing for him here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then we go to Canada.
Yeah, and we find Logan. He is late for a meeting, and he's meeting Professor X and this some kind of, I guess it's a Canadian general.
I guess.
And Professor X offers him a chance to go to the school for misfits, mutants, and oddly he says, "Okay, there's a lot less regulations and rigmarole there, so I'm out of here." The
Canadian G-Man has different plans.
Yeah. And
he says, "We've invested a lot of money in you. You can't just leave."
Yeah. And then he retorts with one of his schnick.
He brings the claw out. And he cuts the guy's tie, which is funny. Mm-hmm. He says, "I'm resigning, effective immediately."
Yeah.
Now, plants a seed because you and I know that they will send Alpha Flight after it to retrieve him. Issues later. I think Professor X arranged the meeting under false pretenses.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have given up their super agent.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that is this before that the X team were hunted by the authorities?
No,
X-Men.
I mean you mean the
X-Men. I know the X-Men were hunted by the authorities, but is this before that, or were they?
I think that develops more in the new X-Men, but I think it was happening some in the later run of the Silver Age.
Okay.
So, I think that they were planting the seeds for that and getting more serious in the last handful of issues written by Roy Thomas and drawn by Neil Adams.
Yeah.
And those are beautiful to behold. They bring back the Sentinels and introduce Sauron, the Pterodactyl Man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was
I'm
awesome.
intrigued.
Yeah, he's great.
Okay, hey. All right.
We meet.
We meet Banshee. He's at the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah. Now, in the Silver Age, Banshee was a one-off X-Men villain before reforming, and
And here he is reforming. He says, "Oh, maybe I ought to go on the straight side.
yeah.
I'd be Gora."
I think the character had been sort of in limbo. They used him a time or two in X-Men, and it's like, well, why don't we bring back that Banshee guy back?
Yeah.
And I always really enjoyed him. I thought he was fun. I liked him in the X-Men a lot.
Yeah. Now we go to Africa.
And we meet Aurora Monroe, Storm.
Yeah.
Well, to be Storm.
Yeah, she's treated like a god, and these villagers come up. Our plants are dying. We need rain. So it's just, okay, I'll help you out. And she says, well, we'll sacrifice some goats. She says, you can keep the goats. Which I thought was really nice.
Well, and the way she words it, you need your beasts more than I.
Right.
I'll just do it. There's a beautiful panel of a close-up of her face, and her eyes are this deep blue. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful baby blue. And in most panels with her, you see her eyes tend to be, except for close-ups, tend to be white and pupilless, especially when she's using her powers.
Right.
But I think this is just a gorgeous little panel there.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. And it's one of the nicer meetups we have here.
Yeah. And Professor X shows up right after she, ends the drought, basically.
Mm-hmm. And he says, come and be an X-Men. But, the thing is, I'd rather be a god than an X-Man.
But the way he approaches her with it is rather intriguing. It's just there's a world outside here beyond what you know. Some of it will be beautiful and some will be ugly, but it's
more real than the fantasy you're living now.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of a nice fantasy out there.
Well, right. I mean, but I think this is a very well written sequence. I like thematically where they're going with that. About finding yourself and making your way in the world and stuff. I just like it. So she agrees. And then Professor X goes and meets up with Sunfire, the jerk-off from Japan.
Oh, man.
Now, you and I covered an issue of Iron Man where he showed up and was causing problems for Iron Man.
Wow, I don't remember this at all.
Yeah, that was in the last year, too. So,
oh, what a jerk.
Yeah, he is such a jerk.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of these guys are jerks.
There's too many jerks. I was going to make this argument later, but one or two jerks, okay. Wolverine's kind of a jerk, but he's lovable. But
Nightcrawler, they make him kind of abrasive too, which they tone down and kind of.
Well, Nightcrawler's pretty cool in this one.
In this, he's a bit rougher on the edges.
I thought he was kind of nice
comparatively to how he is later.
Okay.
And there's another character beyond those two and Sunfire that is also a jerk, and we'll talk about him in a couple minutes. But first...
Yeah. Okay, so Sunfire comes along after being jerky, and we go to a collective farm. So I guess this is in the 70s, so there's still Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And this tremendously muscled man is working in the fields.
Yeah.
And he has to save... Is it his kid? His sister?
And she's playing, and a runaway tractor is coming her way. So he turns into
Colossus, or well,
His body turned into this metal, into
Yeah.
steel, and he looks awesome.
he does. I like that.
So he saves his sister and smashes the tractor.
And then here comes Professor X, and he tells him, to come with us, and then and his name is oh my God,
Pyotr Rasputin.
Rasputin again.
Yeah. Do you have to be awful all the time? It's
yes,
just
I
a
do.
name. Just gotta go.
It's in the contract, man. Didn't you read it?
I wrote the contract.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's between the lines.
He has a nice chat with his folks.
I love this part.
Isn't it lovely?
Yeah, he has to ask his parents permission to leave, and that could be corny, but it's handled well here, and
Yeah.
it's delightful.
Yeah, shades of Dr. Zhivago, but yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right.
But he agrees to go. It's beautiful.
All right, we go to Camp Verde, Arizona. John Proudstar is chasing a buffalo. He knocks it down. I'm not sure why he knocks it down. It's just
Because he wants to?
he's
It's like,
trying to show that.
Why does you climb a mountain?
Yeah.
Because it's there.
Yeah. I think he's showing there's still a man among the Apache.
Yeah.
And here comes Professor X.
Yeah.
Oh,
John Proudstar is the biggest jerk of them all.
I know. And he's really and you can stuff a cactus. Custer said no one ever.
Oh, maybe somebody would say that.
Yeah, well, we just did.
You
but
haven't spent any time on the res. Do you know any Apaches?
they would say, I think they're more erudite than that. Or an original.
You never know. People are different all over. Okay.
But he's a kind of a jerk.
He's an angry young man.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But
You know, when your culture and your people have been decimated and put on a reservation, maybe you're not feeling so thrilled about it yourself.
yeah, but I don't know if I want to see this. So, okay, so at the very end, Professor X does the old coward trick. Oh, you're just a coward. So, well, I'll go anyway then.
Yeah.
And
Like, oh
it
boy,
works on
nobody
it.
calls me that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it works. And of course, Professor X is using his powers to kind of get them to agree, kind of.
That wasn't implied, but of course you're right.
Yeah.
So,
It's subtext. It's not stated, but yeah.
but now Professor X is, I don't know. Will they work though, or we're going to lose the world or something? So he's kind of worried.
Yeah. So we get to part 2. And when there was one.
Yeah.
So we have another splash panel with the all-new X-Men and several of them with their first superhero costumes.
Yeah. Uniforms constructed from unstable molecules, which adjust themselves when necessary. Invented by our good friend Reed Richards.
You'll learn about him and his friends later, blah, blah, blah. And then Sunfire comes in and is being a jerk.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. And the costumes are okay, but he looks like he's going to a Venetian masked ball or something. God, it's awful. The rest of his outfit's okay.
And heaven forbid have an Asian character that doesn't have a rising sun on their costume.
Yeah, well, or a Japanese rather. I don't think you would do that with Chinese.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But most of them seem to be liking them.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Sunfire, Banshee, and Wolverine, the superhero or world of superheroes and supervillains is not new to them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, 4 new characters, and I like them all.
Really?
Even John Proudstar.
Okay. All right. We'll agree to disagree on that one.
Well, I think we'll talk about it more.
Oh, no,
okay?
I'm not. Actually, I don't mind him
think-
as much as I do Sunfire. Sunfire gets under
Yeah.
my skin. Okay.
John Proudstar has some really good moments in dialogue, or some very notable dialogue.
Yeah. Okay, so here comes Cyclops. So speaking of jerks.
Well, you're in the right club, buddy.
So he does some exposition.
And he briefs all of the X-Men, the new X-Men, and us on what happened to the old X-Men.
Cerebro found a super powerful mutant in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
So the original X-Men go out and check it out.
Minus the Beast, who has left the fold at this time.
Oh,
But late in the Silver Age run, the X-Men were joined by Cyclops' brother Alex Havoc and Lorna Dane Polaris,
yeah.
and she has magnetic powers like Magneto. And they were played it up. They alluded to like, was she Magneto's daughter? And a lot of people thought so, but it was not the case.
Okay. So they find the island.
Yeah.
They land. Looks kind of peaceful. Oh, what's that? Bam. And
They get wiped out right away. So yeah, I mean this group of X-Men are not a group of pushovers, so that is kind of frightening.
Yeah. So
Cyclops?
wakes up. He doesn't have his visor on. His eyes hurt, and
Oh,
they're powerless.
yeah, his power is turned off or whatever.
Yeah, but they look red. So
Yeah, well, I think they're just gonna be.
So he's in.
He needs some Visine, that's all.
Yeah. He's in the Stratojet, and the Stratojet takes off and goes to back home, and he cannot do anything about it.
Yeah. So he returns to Professor X, and his powers are gone, and his costume's in tatters.
Yeah.
And Professor X is like, where are the other X-Men?
And then his powers come back with a vengeance,
Yeah.
so he can't control them, and it's pretty
And there's some panels of him just like getting knocked into walls.
from the force of it.
Yeah. Which is pretty great, actually.
So and that's the story, and he's telling the newbies about it.
So we're going to go back and rescue
And
the other
then
X-Men.
Sunfire says, "No, I'll have no part in this fool's errand."
The smartest one of the bunch. You know?
Actually, yeah, I guess he turns out to be right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they have to go anyway, no
Right.
matter.
Yeah, whether he's out or whatever. But it gives him a few panels of him just like, fine, Sunfire, you don't want to come. Psh, that's your business. But we're going to go.
Yeah, so they go off with a rather cool plane.
Yeah. Yeah, the strategy. And I realize a few panels later, Sunfire catches up with him. I bet Professor X used his mind powers to change his mind.
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. You know,
He is such a mercurial guy.
I'm thinking that he did it on his own.
Okay.
And but I like this. Storm is saying, "Well, I don't know if I like this mutant camaraderie."
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Well, yeah, what Thunderbird, John Proudstar, says is, if you haven't noticed, sister, but this group ain't exactly a mutual admiration society. I'm like, like he has some of the best lines, you know? So anyway, we're about halfway through this story. We're going to take a quick promotional break, and we'll return with the conclusion.
The end of the world is approaching. Soon the planet will be engulfed in a nuclear Armageddon, and the only people that can prevent this from happening are considered to be the greatest villains of all time. The only thing standing in their way is the Justice League. In 2005,
Wait a second. Are we sure about that date this time?
Yeah, it's 2005. We're sure this time.
Let's just be perfectly clear. I hate all of you so much.
Okay, good. Got that. All right.
In 2005, DC Comics began publishing a 12-issue bi-monthly comic called Justice. Written by Jim Kruger with art by Alex Ross and Doug Braithwaite, this series was essentially a Super Friends for adults. And now another group of Super Friends has come together to discuss all 12 issues in a podcasting crossover called JL May 2017. The excitement begins on the April 30th episode of the Fire and Water podcast and continues into Supermates, the Idlehead of Diabolou podcast, Views from the Long Box, the Pulp to Pixel podcast, the Lantern Cast, the Shazam Cast, Comic Reflections, the Silver and Gold podcast, the Power of Fishnets, Waiting for Doom, and Justice's First Dawn. JL May 2017. Last year, they covered the beginning of the Justice League. This year, they discuss and review the League's toughest battle. The coverage begins on April 30th on the Fire and Water Podcast, located at fireandwaterpodcast.com.
Xenozoic Xenophiles.
A fan podcast devoted to the comic series Xenozoic Tales.
It's a post-apocalyptic adventure series filled with Cadillacs and dinosaurs.
I'm Ruth.
And I'm Darren.
We hope you'll join us as we discuss the stories, characters, and art in this excellent comic series from creator, writer, and artist Mark Schultz.
Xenozoic Xenophiles is available at podbean.com and on iTunes and Stitcher.
And find us at xenozoicxenophiles.com.
And we're back. Jeff, what's happening in our comic book?
Okay, they make the island, and nobody's impressed. Wow. Can't say much for your taste and vacation spots, Summers.
That's from Wolverine. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's really not the central... they don't make him like the center of this book, like he would kind of later on.
Yeah, the Wolverine. Yeah, it's like Fonzie in the original Happy Days. It was a much better show when he was a character who came in from the sidelines every once in a while.
Instead of being the central.
Yeah. And same thing with Wolverine. It's too much of Wolverine is too much.
Well, there was a time when he was appearing in one comic book a month, X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a beautiful time. What a great time to be excited for a character that you only see some of.
Right.
But anyway, the X-Men the new X-Men are splitting up into teams in the classic comic book tradition, into pairs. Colossus and Storm, Wolverine and the Banshee, Sunfire and Nightcrawler.
Yeah. Let's see. Here's a great line. I can't say much for your sense of humor, Wolverine, nor yours, Thunderbird. The name's Prowlstar, One Eye.
And then Colossus is like, look, we've got code names and we're going to use them.
Right.
So
they're split up into pairs.
Yeah.
Storm and Colossus, Banshee and Wolverine. And Banshee's really happy. And Wolverine sings, whoopee.
Yeah. Yeah. He's pretty nonplussed about things. But I love how Banshee's a happy-go-lucky guy in the group.
Yeah, well, he's drunk probably. Yeah. Sunfire and Nightcrawler, and Sunfire hates Nightcrawler and says,
he's just a jerk. And then Nightcrawler's not thrilled about
him.
it either.
Who does he want to go with? I mean, he doesn't like anybody, I don't think.
Yeah.
And Thunderbird and Cyclops.
Yeah. So, and off they go.
Yeah, they don't like each other. Okay, so Colossus just jumps
out of
out
a plane.
And
not in his armored form.
And Storm is all worried. And
she's like, "You fool! You can't fly."
No, but I can land with the best of them.
Which I love that. That's great. And first of all, how do you know this is your first adventure?
I'm sure he's landed before.
He jumped off of things at the collective.
I guess.
I jumped off the barn once.
Yeah.
So Thunderbird, looking out the window, says, "The chick and the Rusky have landed." Looks like they're fighting too, or they're arguing.
That's hilarious.
Which is about par for the course for this outfit. Which I love that he gets a lot of great lines.
Yeah.
So
I'm getting to like him actually now.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Cyclops lands the Stratojet, and he and Thunderbird disembark, and they're arguing already. And they turn around, and the Stratojet is gone.
Yeah.
And they're freaked out because how can a jet plane just disappear? Ground doesn't swallow it whole. And
they see this mysterious temple that they did not see before.
Yeah, so well, I guess we'll just head to that.
And they get attacked by clinging vines. And they fight, and it's a pretty good fight. And it's over with. So they made it to the temple.
Yeah. Then we check in on Storm and Colossus.
And they fight a sentient rock fall or landslide. And,
Yeah. Colossus hits it with a tree, and then Storm uses wind to blow the rocks into the ocean, which that's quite a heavy wind.
yeah, it is pretty cool.
Yeah,
And they make it to the temple.
yeah. And then the Banshee and Wolverine,
Fight giant crabs.
yeah, it's like, I thought I got rid of you back at the VD clinic.
yeah. Yeah. God. Yep. Well, they make it to the temple. So
Yeah.
then let's see. Oh, Nightcrawler and Sunfire
Get
fight.
attacked. They get attacked by birds.
Yeah. And
Sunfire
That's it.
sets them on fire.
yeah.
And Nightcrawler just teleports around to avoid them.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what good that when you teleport, they're still around. And they're
Well,
gonna wear
right.
them out and then get tired and go home. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's a good page to demonstrate his power because they hadn't shown that yet.
Yeah. So they go to the temple. There's a big door. So hey, let's break through this door. And so Colossus punches through. Cyclops uses his optic ray, and looks like Storm busts through with water. And I'm not sure what this is. I guess it's Sunfire's blast.
Sure. And they find the original X-Men all connected to this, I don't know, plant or something that's that's clearly like sucking stuff out of them.
And it's really cool looking.
It is cool. So they free them, and the Angel immediately starts chastising them.
Yeah.
You fool! Don't you understand? It wanted you to come back with more mutants. It's a trap.
Yeah. Which is now, when I read that, it's obvious because who else put a Cyclops back in the airplane and hit the autopilot?
Yeah.
And so we go Krakoa, the island that walks like a man, and I guess Krakoa is kind of like Krakatoa, which was a huge volcano.
It got blowed up real good in the 1700s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That monster is cool.
Yeah, it looks really rad. So we get like a few panels that give the origin of Krakoa. Nuclear tests on this remote island created a mutated hive mind, and Krakoa, the island, became sentient.
Yeah.
And all the living things on it are part of that hive mind. And it's parasitic. It's wanted mutants to suck all their stuff from.
Yeah.
I'm being really articulate right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. That's
Yeah,
articulate as necessary for this.
Yeah.
And
But man, and so they fight him. Man, it's great.
that's a great fight, but the X-Men do no damage.
Well, right, but boy, they sure have a lot of powers and the fighting and fighting and fighting.
Yeah, it's loads of fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Well, yeah, and you see all these. Like 3 or 4 of them flying around and a bunch of them doing all the stuff. It's great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It is neat.
Then Professor X calls Cyclops through a mental
You're
wave.
doing this all wrong. All right, so Professor X has a plan, and this is kind of complicated. So Storm goes up and gets the power of the atmosphere
Yeah.
and sends it down to
Polaris.
Lorna Dane.
Lorna Dane. Yeah.
And she gets all this power, and it's almost too much for her.
Yeah.
And they're worried she's going to be killed.
Yeah, especially Havoc, who is Cyclops' brother and who is the boyfriend of Lorna. Mm-hmm. They think the concept is Storm is pulling down like stuff from the atmosphere, and Polaris is like pulling stuff from like the magnetic field of the Earth. That's to separate the island from the Earth and shoot it into space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it actually gives the creature even more power.
Temporarily.
Yeah, and then Professor X passes out. He drove himself too hard. And here goes the island into space.
There goes the neighborhood.
Yeah. So they get out of there.
Yeah, and they get onto a raft which Iceman makes.
And then, because the island's lifting up, it creates a maelstrom.
Yeah.
A hole in the water, and it's...
Yep.
And so Iceman saves him again by making a bubble around it.
Yeah.
And they survive, and they find the Stratojet, which is lucky. Right?
Yeah, it was airtight too, so yay.
So now they have. So they go back home. Now they have 13 X-Men.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, Sunfire quits immediately. Thunderbird dies a couple issues later. Dies a hero.
Okay.
And
Is this in the second Genesis?
Oh, sorry. In the reprint that we're looking at, there's a house ad for a trade paperback that includes this and the following issues. So following this, the original X-Men depart. I think the Angel either sticks around for a while or he leaves and comes back. But
He was never one of my favorites.
he's become one of mine, actually.
Really?
I really like the Angel. Yeah.
I like Cyclops, kind of, because he's such a jerk. And I like Hank, but he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Really well drawn. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Important
Yeah.
in comic book history.
Yeah. It's yes.
This is where it all began.
Well,
the
the
rebirth and the huge.
This is the beginning of the X-Men becoming not a cult book, but like a really big deal. I mean, there were hardcore comic people who had fondly remembered the original X-Men, and this, starting in '75 and moving forward, was just a cult that kept getting bigger and bigger. And it culminated with them really becoming the most popular book in comics for starting in the early '80s on.
And it made the second rising of comic book fan. I mean, comic books in the 80s and 90s are really big again, and sold a lot. And I wonder how much X-Men had to do with that. I'm sure something.
They were definitely a significant force in that wave. But yeah.
Yeah, well, that's pretty cool.
Yes. So yeah, that's about it for today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Comic Reflections is recorded in Portland, Oregon, and produced by Sean Roof. Until next time.
We'll see you in the funny pages.
So which is the hottest Marvel character?
Iron Man.
Ant-Man. I can't decide between Professor X and Magneto, so both.
Loki.
Is Wolverine Marvel?
What about White Tiger?
What about White Tiger?
Doc Samson?
Who?
Star Fox?
That's a video game.
The girls go on a journey to determine every Marvel character's hotness in Ohatmu or Not, the official handbook of the Marvel Universe podcast you didn't know you wanted. Available on iTunes and at fireandwaterpodcast.com.
Trekker Talk, a fan podcast devoted to the adventures of 23rd century bounty hunter Mercy St. Clair from the pages of Trekker Comics by creator, writer, and artist Ron Randall. I'm Darren.
And I'm Ruth. We'll be discussing the stories, characters, and art in this excellent retro sci-fi adventure series, as well as having side conversations about other areas of fandom.
We hope you'll join us as we travel from the dangerous back streets of New Galuf to the depths of outer space and everywhere in between.
Trekker Talk is available at podbean.com and on iTunes and Stitcher.
Find us at trekkertalk.com.